And welcome back to another special episode of the Honolulu Blues. As always, you are here with your hosts, Nick and Adam. But who cares about us today? Because that's not what the people are here to see. We have the pleasure of sitting down with Joey Harrington. Joey flippin' Harrington. If I could tell my 10, 11-year-old self that I would be able to sit down with Joey a few decades later, I tell you, life just has a great way of working out. So, Joey Harrington, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think if you told your 10, 11-year-old self that you'd be sitting down with me, I don't know if your 10, 11-year-old self would be too happy about it at the time, right? Because we were probably, I think we probably just finished our 4-12 season, working right into our 10-6, So, it's funny how a couple of decades seem to just kind of soften things a little bit.
I'll tell you what, though, Joey, dating back to my little kid days when little Adam first got into Detroit Lions, I won enough tickets at Dave & Buster's to earn a football card. And I don't remember what the selections were, but all I remember was I walked home with a Joey Harrington rookie card that was plaqued and like in the case on a Joey Harrington plaque. Really cool. And to this day, that is like my first ever football card I got. That was kind of the reason I got into collecting football cards and started my Lions fandom. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, those are the fun stories you like to hear. Like those are the like you can actually make a connection with kids like at an impressionable age. And yeah, I mean, it's funny looking back now, 2 decades removed from being drafted to Detroit. And I hear more and more of those stories, right? As opposed to the stuff that and most Lions, I'll say most Lions quarterbacks not named Matthew Stafford, have kind of felt through the years, which is just like, all right, you're in, let's do it. And then on your way out, it's like, there's some choice words. So it's really nice to be able to reconnect with people because that's the thing too. Like Detroit was full of great people, so I look back on my time in Detroit, now removed and with some perspective of family and kids. And like my wife and I were just kind of sitting there the other night saying like, God, what about that place? That was really great. Or what about that? Like, and all the things that just kind of start coming back. So I appreciate you sharing that with me.
That is a great story.
Absolutely.
And talking about kids and having an impact on their lives, you are here specifically not just to talk to us and about the Detroit Lions, but you're here to
about Nick and Adam. I got to come and talk with you guys.
Right? That's right. We want to hear a little bit more. It seems like the Harrington Family Foundation has this amazing charity going on right now. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I actually started the foundation when I got drafted, knowing that I would want to do something to give back when I was done. I didn't know what that looked like when you're 23 years old. But after I retired, I came up with the idea of a community leadership scholarship, right? What do people think of when they think of me? They think of, being a quarterback, a position of leadership, being from Oregon and then leaving and then coming back and having those connections. And so we give at the foundation 4-year college scholarships to graduating high school seniors from all around the state. And our scholarship has nothing to do with grades and test scores, but rather financial need and community leadership. Like, how have you invested in your community? What have you done to make people around you better? And then we take those students and connect them with a board of mentors. We've got 11 mentors, everybody from, from different industries, finance, marketing, PR, healthcare, state Supreme Court justices, because I think we've seen over the last, let's say 3 years, very specifically since COVID, but we've seen for a long time that it's not just, the money is important. It's important to be able to pay for school. It's important to be able to afford that, but it's also about access. It's also about having somebody who can open a door for you, who can say, hey, here's what I went through when I did this. Let me help introduce you to this person. Right? Or maybe have you ever considered this? Sometimes it's just enough to have somebody in who said, I got your back, like a sounding board. So that's what I offer these students is not just the finances, but a network, a family, right? We started with 4 students 10 years ago, and now we're in our 10th year of the scholarship program, going to be giving scholarships to our 40th students. The past graduates now come back as resources. Our mentors continue to grow. And what started as just a couple people having dinner has turned into 75, 80, upwards of 100 people that come together for these students to simply just be there for them, to let them know they have somebody in their corner. And one of those mentors, one of those people who have been so supportive is Tinker Hatfield. And so for those people who know the sneaker world, Tinker Hatfield designed Jordan 3 through 15, had a hand in 23, because, of course you got to work on Jordan 23, right? But I mean, he did all the Air Maxes. He created the cross trainer, and he was actually the second mentor in our program. And said, yes, I'd love to help students. But when you have that type of worldwide recognition, his schedule's a little bit busy. So, he's found a way to transition into another way of helping, which is fantastic. Like I said, he's somebody who has worldwide recognition and is still literally just skateboarding down the street. He lives in the neighborhood and ringing the doorbell and saying, here's a pair of Jordan 14s that I did for the Oregon football team. I've signed them. These are one of 275 pair that we did this year, and I'd love for you to use them as a fundraiser for the foundation. Well, a few years ago, I had asked him, hey, would you ever consider doing a Jordan shoe for us, just like a foundation specific shoe? And he made 5 pair of Jordan 1s with our foundation colors, our foundation logo. So it was the perfect opportunity when he literally just went ding dong on the doorbell and, handed me a box of the Oregon PEs this year, the Jordan 14s. I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to use our raffle platform and then raise some money for our students. Right. And the thing is, like, everybody thinks of Jordans now and the outrageous prices. You're going on to StockX and paying $500, $600, $1,000, for some of these pairs of shoes. $25. We're not bidding against anybody. This isn't an auction. This is giving everybody access. Like, when you guys were, not only were you getting it, Dave and Buster's football cards, but I'm guessing that you and your buddies wanted the newest Jordan kicks, right? I remember the 11s, like our basketball team had them, and I didn't, I didn't have them. I was like, man, I remember that.
Should have played basketball.
This gives everybody, for a $25 ticket, an opportunity to win truly, like, the holy grail of sneakers. Like, this is an exclusive limited edition 2-pair designed by Tinker, signed by Tinker. Like, this is stuff that DJ Khaled doesn't even have in his closet. Like, that's what I'm telling people. Like, you see his stack. I got 5 pair sitting in the closet over there, and it's the only 5 pair, and I'm giving them one of them away. So that's honestly kind of the crux of the program, right? Giving access, raising others up by sharing what you have and opening a door to help somebody else walk through. So yeah, and if we can do it by raffling off some cool shoes, then let's have some fun with it.
Amen. No, that's awesome, and that's what the world needs these days, is just the most sincerity that we can. Help everyone. You know what I mean? Help everyone, not because of this or because of that, just because it's the nice thing to do and it's the right thing to do. And I love to hear that, Joey. That is outstanding. We will definitely be dropping a link to where you can go find, you can get these raffle tickets online, correct?
Yep. HarringtonFamilyFoundation.org is, we have the link there. The link has been out on, we're a week into this now. So we got one more week until we close up on the, oh man, I'm going to screw this up now.
I think it's the 20th.
And I was going to say the 19th. We draw on Monday the 20th.
Gotcha. That's what I saw. Okay, so we have 1 week left, everyone. Go, 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 go.
Yes, we draw on Monday the 20th. I was like, I don't want to screw that up.
Yeah, no, right. No, yeah.
But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway.
Well, I love that. I do want to transition a little bit into some questions now about the Lions and about yourself. I want to start with Oregon football, which is nothing to do with either of those two. We drafted Penei Sewell, and he has a brother, Noah, who is coming out this year. The Detroit Lions, I say we like I'm a part of the team, which I'm not, but the Lions interviewed him at the Combine, Noah Sewell. I was wondering if you have what would you say to Lions fans who maybe haven't caught any Oregon games or any games like that on the West Coast, if you have anything to say about him at all, or Penei Sewell, who obviously is on our team and has been for the last couple of years?
Penei Sewell is an amazing, he's the guy that every quarterback wants in front of him. He's the guy that every quarterback wants in their locker room, right? He is the guy who's immensely talented. I mean, the guy's a physical freak. I mean, he's incredible, but he has heart behind it too, right? That's the combination that you're looking for. That connection where you say, I'll never forget. Like, I walked into my high school huddle for the first time, right, on the varsity team, and kid got injured, and I walk in, and the whole offensive line just goes, "Nobody touches Joey." And I was like, oh, that makes you feel better, right? And so when your offensive line is, 6'3" and 6'4" and 330 pounds, but they also have that connection, like, nobody's going to touch my guy. That's what you want. His brother Noah has that fire, right? Has that in him. He reminded me a little bit of Junior Seau, just in terms of how he played, like literally played with his hair on fire. Like that guy that, and sure, did he miss a couple assignments sometimes? Yep, he did. Like, but he saw something and he felt it and he just went for it. But those are the things that, like, you can't teach those things. You can't teach passion. You can't teach commitment. You can't teach a love for the game, right? And that's what the Sewell family has, is all those players love playing football.
That's awesome. Yeah, obviously Penei Sewell, he's a building block of our team. So that gets me to my next question. What, when your time in Detroit, what players, staff members, coaches did you have, an extra connection with? Because obviously, I'm sure some of the fans were tough. I'm sure maybe even some of the players might have given you some shade. But was there ever, one player that stuck true to you for your full time in Detroit?
It's an interesting question. Yeah, probably one that we don't have a whole lot. We don't have enough. This is like an entire show kind of thing. My time in Detroit was really interesting in that I came into it. I'll be honest. I was really naive. I had come from this team, this program, this university that truly, like, everybody had each other's back. No matter what, good, bad, and different. Like, that was, you stood up for the people in that space. And everybody says that the NFL is a business, right? Oh, the NFL is a business. Well, but rarely do people tangibly put an example to it, right? And the example that I learned was that, yes, football is a team sport and there's a locker room involved. But when you get to the NFL and people's livelihoods are on the line, there's more to it than that. And there should be, right? My play, or the play of a quarterback who didn't play well, has an effect on the rest of the team, right? And if the team gets rebuilt because we go 6-10, that means someone's losing their job. That means somebody's picking up and moving their family. And there were a lot of frustrated feelings around that at the end of my time. And for me at the moment, it was like, wait, what the hell's going on? Like, this is a team here, right? We're supposed to have each other's back. But looking back, I understand, like, there was a business aspect to it, and there always will be, when you're playing for not just, such a short earning window, right? It's not like NFL players are going in and having a 25-year career at IBM and walking with your 401k and, with a box, hey guys, here's your party on the way out the door. Congratulations on your retirement. You got a short earning window. And when that is affected, there are big feelings around that. So at the time, yeah, it was a tough exit. Like I'm not gonna lie, and I've talked about this before. Look, I'm an open book. But looking back on it, I've been able to reconnect with some of those guys. And frankly, I kept in contact with some of those guys. Casey Fitzsimmons was, I mean, you want to talk about, I use him as an example of like everything you love about football, like everything you love about a teammate, a guy that would literally run through a brick wall for you. I love seeing Dan Orlovsky on TV. He's got a segment on Get Up with Mike Greenberg, where every Monday he does dad jokes, and I'll feed him like, "Ooh, hey, what about this?" Like, and that's it's been fun to kind of grow and see the transition and the paths that different guys have taken. You mentioned trainers, coaches, John Brown, equipment guy. Like I still think about JB. Mark, Tim, like those guys in the equipment room, like that's the core of that football locker room. Like people don't realize. And ironically, one of the guys that I've stayed in really good contact with is Matt Millen. Matt was always a stand-up guy with me. And I'd go in and talk with him, and all I ever wanted during my career, or I should say, all I ever needed, was somebody to be honest and say, "Hey, here's where you stand. Here's what I need. Here's what you're doing well. Here's what you need to improve on." And that's what Matt would do. Like I'd go in there and talk with him on Tuesdays, and just plop down in the chair, and he'd shoot it straight to me, and I appreciate that. I respect that. But yeah, it's an interesting roller coaster ride when you're an NFL quarterback that has so much coming in, has so much pressure, expectations coming in, and then and then don't perform the way that people would have expected or had hoped. It's an interesting ride, but I tell people it's not anything I'd trade. I wouldn't trade anything for the world. Right. Sure. Would I have loved to play 15 years in Detroit and end up in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. I'm sure all the Detroit Lions fans would have loved that too. But you learn things along the way. Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, it's been a really interesting experience. And that's probably more of an answer than you were hoping to get. But
no, that's you just talk as much as you want. We love this. I am so intrigued by all this. I want to follow up though, just because he's a friend of the show, and this guy was my idol growing up, and he battled you at the quarterback position. I want to know what your relationship was, if any, with Mike McMahon, because as you were drafted, he was our starter. You were drafted, you ended up coming in, you took over the reins, respectfully. Mm-hmm. So we interviewed Mike McMahon a few years ago, nothing but great things to say. I just am curious what your relationship was, if any, was with Mike McMahon.
Mike was a fun cat. He and I could not have been more polar opposite. I mean, in every possible way. He was athletic with a cannon for an arm. I was the guy that studied and knew how to beat you before you got to your position, right? He was a guy that was single and outrunning and having fun. I was a guy who was at home. He was. He was. Yeah, it was. we were very different people. Let's put it that way. But I always loved my time in the quarterback rooms with him. It was me and Mike and Ty Detmer. And Ty was the elder statesman who was just like, you just hear him laughing sometimes at the things that Mike would say or the stories that he'd tell. And Ty would just kind of be back there chuckling. I was always intrigued to see what Mike could have done, to see what he could have been. I know he ended up with Marty Mornhinweg over in Philadelphia for a moment. But Mike was incredibly physically talented. My guess is that he was always one of those guys that was so much faster and stronger than everybody else that he didn't have to learn different ways to beat you. Right. And this is just my guess. And so when you get to that point where the playing field levels out, right, and you're no longer the biggest, fastest, strongest, I don't know if that was kind of the point for him. But God was a physical specimen. That guy could run it and throw it.
That's awesome. McMahon, he was a great guy to have on. I'm going to follow up with a question that's, not kind of about the Lions, actually it's a lot about the Lions, but it's about free agency. That's what's going on right now. But not the Lions free agency, but do you ever remember a time in your career where there was a guy, wide receiver, a lineman, running back, where you thought, oh, please go out and get him on my team? Or you even went to the extent of, making a phone call and said, hey, you should come over here.
I wasn't making any phone calls. I think that's something that has evolved in the last, call it 10 years.
Definitely with social media.
Yeah. But I do remember when Matt signed Marcus Pollard. That was something that I remember thinking, because, remember our team then, it was built very heavily through the draft. Like it was Kevin Jones, Roy Williams, Charles Rogers, Mike Williams, offensive lineman Dom Raiola, Jeff Backus, Kelly Butler, these were all drafted guys. Sean Rogers, Dre Bly was a big free agent pickup, a free agent signing that became a really big part of that defense. But I remember when they signed Marcus Pollard, and he had just come from Indianapolis and played with Peyton, and he was somebody that I had really hoped to say build around or use as a sounding board, a resource, a safety net. Like, hey, Roy's covered, and Charles is injured, and who do I go to? And it just didn't quite work out. I think part of it too is you have to understand that free agency was big then, and our team had so much potential, right? Those 4 years when I was there, I mean, I just went down that list of Kevin Jones, star at Virginia Tech, Mike Williams, a standout at USC before he had to sit out, the year, Roy Williams at Texas, Charles at Michigan State. Like these, myself, like these were literally the best of college football. And those 4 years in Detroit weren't necessarily about bringing in big name, right? We were trying to build through the draft and build that foundation for the future. And so there weren't too many huge free agent acquisitions for us that I can really remember.
Do you think, why would you say that the teams just didn't get the amount of wins that we were all hoping for with that star-studded crew? Like, would you say a lot of it had to do with coaching? Do you see yourself like where like obviously you can't just put blame on anything, and that's not what I'm asking you to do, but there's got to be something in your head that's like, why didn't we make it farther than we could?
Oh, sure. First of all, you start with the quarterback, right? I didn't play well, right? And there were games, there were spurts, but on the whole, I didn't play well, and I did a whole
You were
TED talk.
young, but you were young.
Yeah.
Like, can't we say wouldn't that be more on like the quarterback's coach, or no? Is it not?
Yes and no. Sure. Okay. There were, I very specifically remember in a quarterback meeting where they're installing this offense, and drawn it up on the board, and I looked at it. I said, great, I'm blocked up front side, but what happens if they bring weak backer and free safety, 4 off the weak side? And the answer was, well, you have to buy time and make a play. And I was like, well, why can't I just throw a side adjust on the backside and give them a slant and beat well? And the answer was, because that's not what Bill Walsh did, right? Oh. So there, and I was like, well, I'm not Steve Young. I got an 18-yard comeback out here. Like, let's, let me work with this. Right. At the same time, I was my own worst enemy, right? When things weren't going well, I internalized everything, and I kept undercutting myself. Like, I've said over like confidence that there are 50 guys in the NFL that can go out right now and take a snap. Well, 64 guys that can go out right now, take a snap, and make every single throw on the NFL field. Every single one of them. But the difference between the guys who make it and the guys who don't is up here, right? Because when you believe in yourself, and when you are quick with those decisions, you cut the ball loose, get it to the right place at the right time. When you doubt, when you hesitate, when you undercut yourself, or I should say, when you doubt, you hesitate. And when you hesitate, you're late. And when you're late, you're wrong. Like, that's the cycle that I got myself into, which is a significantly longer story than we have right here. The other things too is like Charles and I would have loved to play with Charles. 4 games into it, he goes and breaks his collarbone. Mm-hmm. Right? He goes and breaks his collarbone, comes back for the next season, and literally on the first drive of the game against Chicago, I remember it. Mm-hmm. Third and 8, about the 35-yard line. We ran a basic cross across the middle of the field. And Charles was never a hands catcher. He was always a body guy. So he goes up to catch the ball like this, and he falls, and boom, breaks his collarbone again. And now that's 2 years without him, right? Mike Williams was an incredibly talented wide receiver who had to spend a year out of football, right? And when he came into camp, he wasn't the 225-pound wide receiver from USC. He was a 245-pound guy who needed to get back. Like, there were, and I say this because, like, our team was so young. Our team was, like I said, Kevin, Roy, Charles, Mike, myself, Sean Rogers, James Hall. Like, these were all young guys who we didn't have that veteran, with the exception, like Robert Porcher was great for that defense. But offensively, we didn't have a vet to say, man, get your ass in line. This is how we need to do it. And I think we missed that, right? I do. I think that all this talent was just kind of sitting there like, how do we put this together in the NFL? And it just never quite fit. And then, like I said, you come back to me and I put the fact that we weren't fitting together, I put that on me, and consequently I played worse. And then you end up in this spiral where it just goes downhill. So, yeah, that's my short answer, which is kind of long on why it didn't really work out. Which kind of comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, like playing quarterback in the NFL. I mean, it's for real. Like, this is, you better be ready to deal with it. And looking back, I don't know that I was.
It's okay. Don't even worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's water under the bridge now for Lions fans. We have kept you so much longer than we said we would. But I'm going to ask one more question. I'm so sorry. You're probably like, I got to go. I got to ask one more question. The Lions just hired on Dre Bly, as you mentioned earlier about the player. They just hired him on to be defensive backs coach this year, along with a lot of other players that you played, in the NFL, maybe not alongside with, but while they were playing, like Mark Brunell, Antoine Randall Elf, Hank Fraley, a lot of good players. I'm just curious, what are the Lions' young cornerbacks and secondary getting with Dre Bly as a coach? Do you know?
I would say that they're getting a guy with experience and with knowledge, right? So Dre, when I played with him, he wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the most explosive, right? But he was smart, and he knew where to be and when to be there and why to be there. That's the key in the NFL, right? Is how do you the story I like to tell is it was my second year in the league, and we were playing the Raiders, and Rod Woodson had moved from safety or moved from corner with the Ravens, I believe, to safety with the Raiders, right? Kind of at the end of his career, Hall of Fame career. I get under center. I see Rod back there in the coverage. Okay, backers underneath. Oh, I know what coverage I got. Perfect. Backside in, coming in. Take the snap. Look over here. Look him off. 1, 2, 3. Turn back. Fire. He steps in front and picks it off. And I go up to him after the game, and I said, help me out. Like, I'm trying to learn. Hey, young guy here. What did I do? Did I tip it off with my eyes? Was our split too tight? Was my footwork bad? What was it that got you there? And he just looked at me as like, kid, I've seen that route every day in practice for the last 14 years. Like, hell, you're going to beat me on that. Right. So there's a certain amount, like he knew based on alignment. He knew based on studying. He knew based on wide receiver releases where he should be and why he should be there. And that's what Dre did really well, right? Dre was, very talented. I mean, unbelievably talented. You got to be a DB in the NFL. But Dre was also smart, right? He knew where to be there and why to be there. And that's the kind of stuff that you can teach players as a coach, right? That's the gold. That's the nugget. That's why I always feel like the best coaches are the ones that weren't the most talented. Because it's kind of like that. Maybe the Mike McMahon thing, right? Mike was always just so much more athletic that, you'd ask him why. And it's like, well, just because I could. Why'd you throw that? Because he was open and I could, right? As opposed to, well, I went there because coverage dictated here. He's off safety. Sam Backer went out. Therefore, that takes me inside and I'm reading high to low off the middle backer, right? Those are the things that guys who aren't quite as talented or play for a long time. Right. Yeah, maybe they're really talented at the beginning of their career and their career goes forever because they're able to make that adjustment. That's what Dre does. And that's why he would be a really good asset for those guys.
That's awesome. Adam's muted. That's just that's what we do. We do that at least
every
once.
Guest. They literally, Joey. It's
every interview.
Now. But real quick before we get you out of here, you mentioned Dre was a great coach, but you were talking some, analytics deep diving yourself, and you said it yourself, you're a brains guy. So is there any potential that, Joey Harrington maybe comes on as a assistant coach for the Lions?
No.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can rephrase that question and say, is there any chance that Joey Harrington comes on as a coach? Bam, and then just like stop it there. Doesn't have to be with the Lions. Doesn't have to be with Oregon. Doesn't have to. Not even like Pop Warner or like no, none. Like that.
I love it.
I just finished coaching my 8th grader in. They just had their end of the year basketball tournament, and I coached their team from 3rd graders all the way through 8th grade basketball. And there's something about that. There's something fun about that, being able to shape and teach and mold. But once you get, and even high school now, it's just like, I don't know. Like that's not my deal. I'd rather give scholarships for a living. That's I'd rather be able to be on the sidelines with my boys and on the sidelines, sitting in the stands, not and enjoy and not have that kind of pressure. So yeah, no, awesome. It has nothing to do with the Lions. Just I ain't coaching.
It just seems like the Lions are bringing back anyone that played from the 2002 to 2004 era. So, what I mean? We just assumed that you were on the list too.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Well, we just want to say thank you once more, Joey, for coming on the show. It has been awesome. For anyone listening, please make sure you go find the link. Again, we'll be dropping it on our Twitter, our Facebook, our YouTube links, and go buy a $25 raffle ticket. You can buy up until
if you want to, you
buy more than one. Yes, buy
your
many.
odds better. That's the thing about gambling is like if you buy more, then your odds get better.
And we love gambling here in Michigan. So go buy as many as you can. And also, not just for the sneakers, it's a great cause. It is unbelievable that you've kept this foundation going since your rookie year. We love to hear that. And we just appreciate you coming on. Thank you again, Joey.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right, everyone, go Lions. Have a great day. Thank you for joining.
See ya.